The military was flying me to Landstuhl, Germany to say goodbye to my son and bring his body home.
I saw part of a robe, and that was it. He had already let loose the rocket. It was an RPG. He shot me with a rocket-propelled grenade.
It's the worst feeling to feel like you're not safe where you should be safe.
Shrapnel, actually some of it the size of a baseball. We have a picture of his helmet with the blood in his helmet.
I thought that we had just crashed the truck.
The rocket went right along the ground, took my leg off right below my knee. The rocket went clean through and blew up under me.
I can't see, I can't hear.
Bullets are flying around me, they're hitting the dirt. I don't know if I'm hurt.
One of my closest battle buddies was sexually assaulted by one of those soldiers who came to our camp for R&R.
My best friend was killed by the IED that got me.
I see an RPG coming, it goes right over my head.
The medic started packaging me up, and he saved my life, put a tourniquet on my leg because I was just bleeding into the desert.
Mom, I shot that man, I shot him. I know I killed him.
Worst intense pain of my life.
Things that he has to relive and remember will be with him forever. When Rory's in a restaurant, he has to have his back to the wall. When we're walking on the street, he will not go over a manhole. He's just actually gotten angry with me crossing the street. You look both ways, you have to do this. In Iraq, you don't stop at a red light. You don't stop on the road ever. And so at home, for us to be in the car, to sit at a stoplight is excruciatingly painful for Rory to sit. He's got to go, go, go.
You know, knowing that you're in one of the top units with the top equipment in the world, in one of the top militaries, you go into a lot of things thinking you're almost invincible. Well, I was born in California, and then when my dad was actually a law enforcement officer down there in LA. It was a pretty normal life, you know, running through the woods and then just going to school. You know, nothing extraordinary, nothing dull.
I probably cried the whole year that I was there. It was very hard on me, especially that I had left my 1.5-year-old behind for family members to raise. But they're oh so good. It's the worst feeling to feel like the people that you're supposed to be able to trust, you can't trust. And if I could just, you know, share a little experience that we had in our unit. Our camp was supposed to be said a lesser camp, and we had soldiers deploying to our camp for R&R. And during this time, one of my closest fellow soldiers and battle buddies was sexually assaulted by one of those soldiers who came to our camp for R&R. And so that puts a fear in you that can't be taken away. It got to a point where I just literally could not function. It was killing me to get out of bed in the morning. I was very emotional about everything. And, you know, I just said, I want to end how this feels. And so I went in and I talked to somebody else and I said, I've never felt like my life was so bad that I just want to stop living.
We had a family friend. He had been in the military, and he was like a big brother to me, and really idolized him, looked up to him a whole bunch. And you know, I'd hear his stories about what he had done, what he had seen, and I just thought, you know, that sounds like a lot of fun. 18 years old, jumping out of airplanes, shooting guns, blowing stuff up. It appealed to me.
All right, let's go get our shoes on. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, let's get your sweatshirt. Come on.
I'd signed up for 4 years the first time, and I was fully planning on going down to San Diego, living with a friend down there, and going to college. And then 9/11 happened, and I re-enlisted for 3 more years. We kept pestering our leaders. When are we going? We can go right now. Let's go. Of course, I don't think they had really identified anyone to go after at that point, but it didn't matter. We wanted to go. We were itching to go. We just got hit, and we wanted to hit somebody back.
We're not from a military family or a military background. I was like shocked, upset. I was like, Rory, have you picked up a newspaper lately? Afghanistan is really kind of heating up. I just couldn't picture him in a uniform and going to war, and the idea of him with a gun and shooting people and being shot at was just, as a parent, it's just really, really frightening. It's something that you think about first thing in the morning and the last thing at night. And especially Rory, who had been the peacemaker, the funny guy, always joking, that again, that big heart and big smile. It was Rory's birthday. It was his 22nd birthday. I got this phone call and this shaking voice on the other end. It was his captain at Fort Drum informing me that Rory had been critically wounded by an IED while on escort patrol for a civil service team. And just as I hung up, my husband, I heard him come through the front door and set his briefcase down. I heard him kick off his shoes, and he came down the stairs, and I said, "Our boy is hurt. I don't understand." I stood at 4 o'clock in the morning at the emergency room door until he arrived. And when he came off that medevac, he came off feet first. And that was all I could recognize were the bottoms of his feet. Another neurosurgeon came in and said, you need to prepare yourself. He's not going to make it through the night. And I went back in by myself. I didn't know he was deaf. He's profoundly deaf in one ear and severely deaf in the other. I must have got the right side of the head. And I got down in his face and I just shouted at him, "This is your mother and you will not die." He moved his arm.
I can remember the bomb blowing up. I didn't remember me being hurt, though. I thought that we had just crashed the truck, tried to roll, like we'd almost rolled it over. I realized when I woke up that I just not seeing very well and something really wrong with my head. I can't see, I can't hear. If I take my hearing aid out, I'm deaf. I have, range of motion that's not the same on my right shoulder. I have massive head trauma. Beyond having head trauma, I can get, headaches because of my poor vision. I get headaches just because I've had, 4 pieces of shrapnel still stuck in my brain.
He was hurt by a daisy-chained IED, improvised explosive device that was hung in a tree. As his Humvee passed underneath, it was detonated by remote control. It destroyed all of his forehead, frontal lobe from ear to ear. It destroyed his right eye orbit and eye. It crushed his right side of his face. His left eye was blown out of his head. We didn't know it until later, but he was deafened in both ears. And my son, on his birthday, with no eyes, no forehead, no hearing.
People will never be able to understand a brain injury until you know, get whacked upside the head really hard. It's just, and where the military is still barely recognizing a traumatic brain injury. This colonel was trying to discharge me. I wasn't cognitively awake.
Within days of him coming out of his coma, Army leadership was at his bedside with a pen in his hand to start the discharge process. I went to the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, our senators, our congressmen, Paul Wolfowitz, General Richard Cody, you name them, I went straight to them. And I just picked up the phone and wrote emails, and I just said, I saw you on TV. I saw the money that was allocated to this program, to this hospital, and I want to know why my son's not getting this.
I wish, I wish I just had never joined. I wish I'd never been trying to, I thought I was helping. I just wish I wish I'd just kept going about my business. Having my vision, having hearing, all of my senses, that was great.
I just felt like I was over the top, just a tad bit. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to go in and I'm going to get checked out and see what's going on. And they still couldn't figure out what's wrong. Maybe you're just stressed. Maybe you're just a little overwhelmed. I had gone so far untreated with PTSD that I didn't know how to control my feelings and emotions. I just said whatever was on my mind, which is not always the best communication skill. What? I don't have to have a missing leg or a missing arm. And actually the mental effects of the disability is somewhat worse than that of a physical disability. It's hard to pinpoint it. And so that makes it really hard for people to get the support and the things that they need, because without a clear stamp of approval from that administration, it's hard for you to get certain services.
I think the things that affect you are the mental aspects of it, anger issues. There's definitely, not why did this happen to me, but hey, this shouldn't have happened to me, or why did it happen to me? But then you get past that real quick thinking, well, hey, it happened. I got to start dealing with it. And I have to thank my wife on that one. She picked me up by the bootstraps or picked me up by the seat of the pants when I was saying, I don't want to do this. I think without her, I would have been, I don't think I'd be where I was at right now. Don't get me wrong, I was scared. You're scared a lot. But at the same time, you don't take counsel of those fears. And I remember as I scanned to my front, I saw the scope, or it was glass, but I knew what it was. It was a scope of something. And then I saw part of a robe. And as soon as I saw that, I had enough time to tense and flip my weapon to fire. And that was it. He had already let loose the rocket. It was an RPG he shot me with, a rocket-propelled grenade. Come on, Zoe. I was told by my father, always respect your enemy, because you can hate them all you want, but respect them because they can always hand it to you just like you can hand it to them. And I'll give those guys one thing. They were outgunned, they were outmanned, and they fought tooth and nail.
We spent 90% of our time in Iraq looking for roadside bombs. How do we find a roadside bomb? It blows up and kills somebody. Now, having that terrible sense of, just terrible sense of fright for, 2-3 months straight, that leaves a permanent problem. That left me with a permanent problem.
Do you ever recover? I can't say, because I don't think I've reached that point. But it is a barrier, and it takes daily work.
The general public just doesn't have any idea of what's, they just don't have any idea of what I've been encountered, what I've seen.
Disabilities like this are the ones that are later diagnosed, and that's what causes the problem. If it was diagnosed right when it happened, it would be a little easier. That's how they look at it. But disabilities like this take years for people to even find out that they have it.
I can never let my guard down. It's not that I think someone's going to attack me. It's just that if somebody was, I'd want to be prepared for it. It's not that I think somebody's going to, going out of their way to try and get me. It's just that, there's lots of nutballs around. If you ever listen to the news, just one day out of the week, there's crazy people all over.
People perceive him to be retarded because he wears these very thick glasses. And he's not at all. The minute he opens his mouth, you can tell, we've got just this charming, personable young person.
People on the outside say, yeah, you've done this and now you're a police officer, that's amazing. And it's like, well, okay, if I had 2 legs, would you be saying how great it is? No, probably not.
Watch out, cat. Watch out!
I think most people that are handicapped or disabled, most of them don't think of themselves like that. Things aren't always what they seem.
I want reading to be the #1 thing in school. I want everyone to read books.
Honestly, the only time I'm handicapped is when I'm putting up that placard to go park in a closer parking spot,
I see a bright future. I see someone who will eventually be educating others about post-traumatic stress disorder.
I want people to understand that post-traumatic stress disorder, again, it is not a mental disorder. It is a normal reaction to abnormal circumstances. It is trauma, and it needs to be understood as trauma and treated as trauma.
One of my big things I want to do, I want to get to Italy. So I want to see the Sistine Chapel with that Michelangelo's paintings. I want to see that before this eye just doesn't work anymore.
I'm going to always hope for the best. And I have 2 very beautiful children that I have to work hard for.
We need to understand how to act and interact and react with this generation of young people that are coming home.